What's going on, Opecast? This is Braden, and today we have a very special guest. We have Tom Ackerman, the sports director at KMOX, which is the flagship station of the Cardinals and SLU basketball. He's a co-anchor of Total Information A.M. He's been doing the over 20 years of the Missouri Valley Conference, and I feel like the list can go on, but without further ado, Tom Ackerman.
I appreciate you having me. I really like this studio. I like this format. And I love this city. I love the fact that you're right here in the city. I love talking about it. So thanks for having me. Right up the street from our station, actually.
Did you take the highway, or did you just take? I'm gonna take.
Oh no, I took Olive. Yeah, Olive becomes Lendl, and then Euclid, and here I am. Piece of cake. Piece of cake.
When it's like that drive has been changing over the last few years. The scenic views are starting to change. New buildings, new murals, things like that.
City Park. I mean, you know, it has changed everything on that side of downtown, and you know, it really is exciting. I've worked downtown for 27 years. I grew up in this town. You know, when I was growing up, and I'm old, so I don't feel old, but I'm getting there. I'm 49. And when I was growing up, you know, we could not wait to get downtown when we were 16 years old and play around and like go to games and stuff. And, you know, things have changed a little bit when it comes to the city, but, you know, the city is coming back and I love the city and it still excites me. And even though I don't live in the city, I work in the city, I've lived pretty close to the city, and I prefer it. Always. It's my default. Like when we go out to eat, my wife and I go out to eat, we're going to pick somewhere in the city. When I want to work and do something exciting, city. You know, city life has always been a big part of who I am. So yeah, it's awesome. And then, you're absolutely right. Things change all the time and hopefully for the good, you know. Progress right now is got a little momentum. Anytime that I see things being built or changing in the city, it's a good thing. And City Park was an absolute monster. So
it's right around the corner for me.
You know, I just passed it on the way, so it's top of mind. But it's really, really great for what's going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of exciting stuff from obviously City Park being newer, the developments going on around there, North City, the Gateway South project. I mean, if you're sleeping on St. Louis, guys, just Google what's going on, because it's the next probably about 5 to 8 years. I mean, from right now to the next 5 to 8 years, it's going to be a different city.
It is, you know, and it's changing. What I like about it is it's affordable, and you've got a lot of young people that have caught on to that, and so we got to take care of them. You know, we got to take care of young professionals, young curious people, young exciting people that are going to give our city life. You know, and it is, I think, the first people that should experience the city are people who actually live here. I think people who come to St. Louis as visitors, as vacationers, let's say, are like, are you kidding me? You have a park in the middle of your city that's like 1,700 acres? What in the world? Like, this is incredible, you know? Yeah. And sometimes we get in this routine of like whatever we do on a daily basis. You go to Forest Park, you're like, wow, they're right. This is pretty great. Yeah. And I've been going there, you know, my whole life, but you rediscover things. I do that all the time. I rediscover neighborhoods. I can't do it today, but I plan like lunches and dinners and drinks, you know, around which neighborhoods I'm working in sometimes. And like, oh, I'm going to be there, so we'll hit that and then I haven't been there in a while, you know, and you know, one of the great things about St. Louis is we're a collection of neighborhoods. Yep. And they're all different. So you kind of, you know, become a local in that neighborhood is what I like to say. So if I'm in the Central West End, I might hit that for a few days and like feel like I'm a Central West End resident. Webster Groves, you know, somewhere in the Metro East. Whatever it is, I want to explore and know more about it. I'll never know everything about my own town, even though I've lived here my whole life.
Yeah, and I feel like the different neighborhoods, it shows you a whole different side of St. Louis. Like if you want that New Orleans, you know, that jazz feel, you're going down to Soulard. If you want the kind of like that Beale Street, that Nashville music feel-ish, you got the Delmar Loop. So it is cool that we have all these different areas. Now, you mentioned you're from here, you live here, but growing up, when you're 16 or whatever, you were looking forward to coming downtown. So let's talk about a little bit about your upbringing and what got you into the industry that you're in, and how, now we're on a podcast right now that's put together in this office, but like, how did you get into radio?
Man, I mean, it all starts with a love of sports. So it goes back to my dad. So when I was a kid, my dad was into sports, and kind of, I watched sports through his passion. He grew up in St. Louis. He listened to Jack Buck, so I listened to Jack Buck. He watched college football on Saturday, so I did. He went to Mizzou games, so I did. He liked, racing, IndyCar, so I liked it. And I followed my dad and watched him enjoy sports, and he was friends with some coaches and people who were involved in sports. And so I became immersed in that world, and I learned how to speak the language of what coaches like to talk about, because I was the kid kind of standing off in the corner. My dad was a business owner who started really with not much, and grew it, and he did it by developing relationships. And so part of his world of sports was just knowing people and respecting the people who did the jobs. And so that's what got me into it. And then, of course, just watching and listening to games, I wanted to be a broadcaster. I wanted to be just like those guys. And so I, really just enjoyed the craft. And then...
Did you play any sports growing up?
I did. I played baseball. I played football. But basketball was my true love. And I loved playing hoops.
Who were your guys like you were looking up to at that time?
I mean, definitely Jordan, But I was a college basketball kid. I watched Mizzou basketball when I was a kid. I went to Norm Stewart's basketball camp. I go way back, man, like 80s, like John Sunvold, Steve Stepanovich, Prince Bridges, Ricky Frazier, like those early Mizzou teams. They were really good. I mean, they were number one in the nation. Doug Smith, Anthony Peeler, in the late 80s, early 90s. Those teams were really good. They just could never get to the Final Four. But, you always dreamed of what it would be like. And then I went to Indiana University, and that was like a whole different level of basketball. Like, no offense, of course, to my hometown and Mizzou, but what they do over there, they treat basketball, college basketball, like we treat baseball in this town.
Was that Bob Knight?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is, religion to them, and a huge part of who they are. It's their culture. So I learned even more basketball through them. So yeah, that was a big part of it. Baseball, though, was, the Cardinals were my first team, and the Cardinals are our number one partner at KMOX, and the Cardinals are just about everything. So, when they do well, I feel great. When they don't do well, I get frustrated, just like most fans. But it's also, I'm in this 365-day-a-year baseball world. It just never really stops. The seasons, to me, blend into one another because you have off seasons, you have spring training, you have, it's just there's a constant demand from our listeners to want it. So I always wanted to do that when I was younger, and now I'm doing it. Sometimes I have to tap myself on the shoulder and little Tommy Ackerman and say, this is pretty cool, like you're doing that. And I still have that feeling, which is good. I told my kids that, like, I'll always have that little kid in me. I may be dad and, responsible and all these things that we do as adults, but I'll always have the kid. There's no doubt. That is what keeps me going.
How was it getting into radio early on? Did you start out like as an intern, work your way up, or? So
when I was in high school, I'm 6'2", about 215, 220 right now. Junior in high school, I was 5'7", 130 pounds. The only reason I was on the basketball team was probably because I could shoot it a little bit, and I was an enthusiastic love of the game. I knew the game. I could play a little defense, but I was small and slow. And when I was playing football, I was small and slow. I was even smaller than that. So after freshman year, I'm like, I just, I can't be a quarterback as much as I wanted to be. So I became the public address announcer for the football team. Sophomore year, I did JV when the varsity announcer, who was a faculty member, development. Worked in development. When he left for another job, I took over as the varsity public address announcer for Country Day football, which was a big Saturday tradition. And it was the start of everything. I was reviewing rosters, I was studying pronunciations, I was doing sportscasts at halftime for the crowd, I was talking to coaches before the game, and I was studying how plays were developed. And even though I'm the PA announcer, that was the start of everything. And that confidence turned into going to college, doing college radio, which became doing shows, doing play-by-play. And then my graduation, instead of looking at a smaller market and working my way up, I came back home and I went right after KMOX and tried to get in the door. And I got a nice recommendation from KC95, a rock station here that I interned for 2 summers. They were like, boy, that Ackerman kid, he'll do anything. I mean, he's fun to work with, and they wrote me a glowing review. And KMOX hired me for $7 an hour to work behind the scenes, and I just, within the building, worked my way into a reporting and later hosting job. That was 1997, 98, and everything just accelerated in the sports world here. I hit it at the perfect time. 98, McGuire-Sosa home run race. 99, Rams go from nothing to Super Bowl champions, and I was there for all of it. So, and I was reporting on it, and so everything was moving very quickly, but I was moving with it, and it was a great run, and it still is.
What's that mental approach? Do you stay up late watching the games and then you wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning to go to the studio?
In those times, so I was I was kind of all over the place. Like today, how do I handle that today is I do watch a game so that I know what I'm talking about in the morning. Then you sleep and you get up and you do the show. It's a big audience, which I really appreciate. So that gets you extra pumped up. Mm-hmm. You take a nap in the afternoon when you can, and then you do it all over again.
I've gotten into naps recently.
They're great.
Game changer.
It's a great reset.
Yeah.
But in those times, I was working nights, I was working weekends, I was working some early mornings. It was kind of all over the place, but you just have some fun with it. I think the big thing was kind of what my dad taught me was you respect the people that you're covering. They have a job too. And so you watch them very closely as to how they do their job, how they prepare, and report on it. Talk to them as people. And over time, I think they respected my job and what I was trying to accomplish. And you just come to that common middle ground. But boy, those were fun times. I mean, I went from Indiana University, where I did get to cover Bob Knight and some very high-level basketball with big audiences. That really helped me. Going to press conferences with tons of people, and ESPN's in town and CBS is in town doing national games was a great atmosphere to learn in 4 years of Indiana University basketball and football, but basketball mostly because of its brand. And so I transitioned back home, and I'm working with the Cardinals, and there's no team I know better, so I just did what I thought I could do, and they sort of, KMOX just kind of put me right into it. I mean, they treated me like I was a veteran Major League Baseball reporter. I'm 22, 23 years old, but, I'm at KMOX for a reason. So just learn on the fly, and, the responsibility of following all of these great people at KMOX was exciting and still is, and the fans, because I grew up as one, I kind of understood what they wanted, which is this insatiable appetite for info and baseball, and nothing's ever enough, but tell them kind of a couple things that they don't know about the team and keep them engaged and interested. It's that stuff just kept you going. I will say though, as time went on, I got into my 20s, my mid to late 20s. I'm like, if I keep going at this pace, I'm going to burn out. I mean, there's a lot that I was doing, and I got married, and you start raising a family, and you realize the work-life balance. You start working around with different people who can do the job. And when I became sports director of the station in 2007, I started to learn how to delegate and how to be a leader, and life got really great. I mean, I actually became, I think, better as the years went on, not just because of experience, but because I took care of myself a little bit better and didn't go 100 miles an hour.
Or you know what it's like to be in the fire, working year after year, doing everything, and then you're like, okay, I've done that, I've covered that. Now, that work-life balance, you're like, okay, let me delegate. This person has this skill set, I'll put them there.
Yeah, it really is the best job in the world when you can cover sports, or in my case, just be in media. And I should add news and politics and those things that I do on the morning show. I really enjoy that too. And that's been a whole new challenge, is learning people in government and in business. And I found myself very curious. Like every show that I do on Total Information A.M., I learn a ton. And I do it by asking questions and being prepared. All of that stuff is great. But yeah, there's the work-life balance is really important, and making sure that I remind myself my number one job is being a great dad and husband. I mean, you just saw before we went on, I was somewhat distracted because I was making sure my daughter gets to her doctor's appointment on time, things like that. That stuff really makes me happy. Like, I like knowing at the end of the day that I took care of my kids, my wife. My job is a very important part of my life, but when I was 25, I thought it was everything. And I was, without knowing it, wearing myself out. Now I think I have a better view of what's important. Not to say that I wouldn't, at the drop of a hat, get on it and take care of something. Like we are a 24-hour service. And my job kind of has to be, I sort of have to be available if something were to happen, get on it. But we also have a lot of people over there that can do that, So I think over time I've really appreciated what it takes to do that job well, and while continuing to challenge myself and never feeling totally settled. I have this thing about always just wanting to challenge myself to do a little bit better. That'll never, ever change. I'll always be that way.
Before, were you like reading the paper, and then now instantly, you can see this player is batting 273 and
yeah, totally.
So you've been able to adapt to that, and then
yeah, I still read the paper like I was reading it today. I still get the paper on my driveway. I love the feel of the newspaper, but the newspaper is just not nearly as fast as everything else now. You can catch in real time. I'm on Twitter, and I can find and be tapped into what's happening in real time news-wise. I've started, no offense to the other social media platforms, but I've kind of backed off of Instagram and Facebook a little bit because Twitter was more of an effective source of news for me, and I have this immediate connection with our listeners when it comes to our content. So, the Cardinals, I can engage with them a little bit. I was very tempted today to tweet something about how disappointed I was in the game yesterday, that I can't quite get over it. What I would do is not on Twitter say try to be like some know-it-all. Like, I just want to connect with the listener. So I would say something along the lines of what I might say later today, actually, before this game, is that I'm still not over yesterday for some reason. I'm usually really good at moving past games and thinking about what's next, but I'm disappointed in yesterday, and I can't quite shake it, and I'm not really sure why. And what that does is that everyone's like, okay, we're here to help. So, or they're negative or whatever, but we open up discussion. And I love that interaction with the listeners. I like to know what our customer, what our audience wants. And what they're thinking. And sometimes I'll do that to engage them, and it helps me, it gives me a better understanding of what our listeners, our most loyal listeners especially, want us to be talking about.
How do you deal with the haters?
It actually is fun for me. Now, I think in general, most people are pretty nice to me. I think I'm I'm reasonable, I think. Sometimes they'll poke fun at me at being too much of an optimist or being too positive. Now, the ones that really try to dig, and on Twitter, we sometimes will get people that will say some nasty stuff. Those are the ones that I find to be the best challenge. So then I will take that person and engage with them. And at first, I think maybe it surprises them that I reached out. And then there's some times where it goes into the DMs where I will be like, well, if you want to talk about this, then let's talk. Let's go. So then we talk and talk and talk. And then it gets to the point where they're like, hey, you seem like a pretty good guy. Like, maybe we should, I'd love to go have a beer sometime. I'm like, yeah,
Nope.
maybe we will do that, you know? But I like that challenge of being able to, I think people just want to be heard, you know, and they like the accessibility. Like I'm a host on KMOX and they can actually say something and get a reaction from me. That's fine. I enjoy that. I always tell myself it's just sports. Like, we're not solving the world's problems. It's just baseball. It's okay. We can talk about this stuff. We don't have to get bent out of shape. I don't have to get bent out of shape about somebody who's upset about the Cardinals. They pay money to go to the games or to watch them on TV or to buy their family gear. They want the team to be good. So do I. So we have that in common.
Yeah.
So let's just, how do we get around talking about it? That's how I view it anyway. So,
I feel that. I recently, so I had a pop-up bar and I had someone, they commented something like, man, these millennials, they can't get over their childhood, because it was like an adult summer camp. And it was funny because like when I looked up that person's profile and I started diving in, hey, how about this? Let's do something about skateboarding and we could paint the boards, get some artists and maybe teach some kids how to skate. Like literally almost the same exact thing that is for this pop-up, for that one. He's like, man, I think that's a really great idea. And it's just like, even like when some people they troll me, those are my favorite to respond to. I don't troll back, but I get them to buy in and be more positive.
Well, I almost like respect them, even though I at first I'm like, wow, that's really mean. But I'm like, at the same time, I kind of respect that you took the time. You must be passionate about it because you took the time to say something. So you got some guts. So, okay. All right. Let's just take a step back. It's just baseball, man. It's just Twitter, or it's just football, or whatever it is. And let's talk about it. And then that's okay. I mean, that's
conversation. Look,
you got to have a thick skin in this business, or in any, I guess, if you're a public figure and you just there's a way to treat your audience, and I always want to be respectful, and I always want to be available, and if I'm those two things, then I can't go wrong, and I think people will understand that. I don't want to ever make like Twitter followers or KMOX listeners think that I'm too good to like respond, even if it's negative. That I'm just like, I want to be as close to them and make them understand that I'm not really that far from them. Honestly, I just have better access, and I have some years of experience behind the scenes. I have some knowledge of what really goes on sometimes, so I have to explain to them why something is happening.
Outside of sports, obviously you're a family man, but you also volunteer and give back to your community. One of the organizations you've been tied to over the last several years has been UCP Heartland. And so how did you build that relationship? Because they have Wingding coming up here real soon.
Yeah. So when I was on Facebook, and I am still on Facebook, but when I was a little more active, I got an instant message from a young man named Andrew Price, who I want to say at the time, Andrew must have been 18. He was 18, 19 maybe. And we messaged each other. So he followed me on Facebook and asked me a sports question, and I responded back. And we started to engage a little bit, and I saw his profile, and I realized that he had a disability, and I didn't know what it was, but I started to go back and forth with him a little bit, and he asked if it was okay that he was messaging me. I'm like, is it okay? I'm like, just here, man. I'm like, this is my cell. Just text me anytime. Well, he took me up on that, and we still text each other. And then that turned into, he was a big KMOX fan and wanted to come to some events and did, and I would visit him at Busch Stadium, or I'd visit him when he came to our holiday radio show. And I got to know him and his parents. And I would take him to the ballpark and show him, and introduce him to people. And I just got a kick out of making him laugh. And, Andrew is unable to speak, but I can communicate with him, whether it's via text or in person. We have the ability to talk to each other without speaking back and forth. I just did yesterday. I was just with him at the ballpark yesterday, and it just felt great. He made me feel good, and I knew that I had an impact on him, and I really enjoyed it. So I've sort of followed his journey into UCP and all the places that he's lived and the people that he's interacted with. I got to know his parents, and sadly he had a loss in his life. And when he lost his mom, I was there to talk to him about it. And so that's my connection. So I give him a lot of credit. He was very forward about, I need you to help me on this wing ding. And it wasn't like he was just standing on the side. I mean, he was involved.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, I need you to help me get some celebrity judges. I need you to be part of this with me. And I'm like, I'm in, man. What do you got? What's going on? Tell me more. And the more I saw the wing ding, I'm like, well, this is pretty cool. I mean, look, it's great what they're doing for UCP.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking like this thing could be pretty amazing. I mean,
yeah.
St. Louis is about food, and everyone's proud of their, we have such a great restaurant scene. Like, I don't know, who does have the best wings in town? I don't know. I mean, yeah, I could name off 10 places right now, and most of them are involved in this event.
Is this the biggest winged event in St. Louis?
I mean, it's got to be.
I feel
if
like
it isn't, it's got to.
I'm a foodie, and I'm involved in the food scene, and I don't know of any.
Like, I actually explained it on KMOX this morning, and I said, I talked about it, and I talked about who has the best wings in town, and at the end, I was like, and it benefits UCP, where it used to be, I was trying to help UCP get the word out about this. They've actually built it so big themselves that it's now, yes, it benefits UCP, but it's actually taken on a life of its own. I mean, they're going into the Armory and putting, potentially 1,000 people in there tasting wings, and restaurants all trying to get in. I mean, it's got a chance to be something pretty massive. So I also wanted to see that and help that get big because it helps St. Louis. They were going to be at the Armory in the city. What a cool thing. I mean, a venue that needs to continue to be great for our city to be great. So I'm all in.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time. Like, I always like to reel people in with, like, okay, we're going to have some really good wings, and it's also for a good cause. And then you're going to be at the Armory, so you're going to have all the games. It's going to be fun. What's been your favorite wing so far?
So I think that I have been placed in the dry rub category, which is really great. I love all wings. Well, let me tell you, the first year that I did it, I walked in and I was on stage because I'm emceeing it, and they said, hey, we have an open spot if you want to be a judge for this first round. I'm like, yeah, sure. And it's the Buffalo category. I'm like, perfect. So they start bringing wings. My mouth's watering just thinking about it. They start bringing wings, so I love wings. I was starving. So I'm like, yeah, I'm eating wings. We judged like 10 wings. And they're like, great. And then they're like, okay. And so we all get up. And then they said, okay, the second round of, or it was me. I was like, the second round of judging. And I look at the list of judges, and I'm on the list for the dry rub. I'm like, am I supposed to be in the dry rub? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, all right, well, okay. So I sit down and I start tasting more.
Yeah.
And so now we're up to like, 18, 19, 20 wings that I've eaten. So the third round was the specialty category.
Mm-hmm.
And there were like 3 different judges that are like, well, you got to do it now. You got to do all of them. I mean, don't stop now.
Yeah.
You might as well do them all. So I ate that day 26 wings. And I did not want to look at another wing for about a week after that, but it was fun. And yeah, I did them all. So I'd say my favorite would be the dry rub. I'm looking forward to that. And that's because it's not as messy. And I feel like I can get through them faster. You can really taste the wing.
Yeah.
So a good wing for me, it has to have some crisp. It has to hit you with flavor, not be overpowering though. Mm-hmm. I like it, really fully cooked, crisp, but with some flavor, and it's got to have. It can't be dry. So, it's a fine line. I mean, it takes some talent.
You do your research on it.
Yeah, it takes some talent. It's got to be good. There's some great ones.
You can't go wrong with anything there. And when you're,
I see Emo's is going to be there. That's on your hat.
They better have the riplet wing.
I'm very curious to see because Emo's is legit. I mean, they don't mess around. I mean, they may surprise. They may come at you with, that's not a small operation. That's Emo's we're talking about.
No pressure.
Yeah, I mean, you tell them they're in a contest, they're going to bring it. So I'm looking forward to that.
When you were describing like being part of every single competition, it reminded me of Damian Lillard when he rapped. He was in I think the All-Star game, the dunk contest, the 3-point. So you were in everything.
Yeah, I was in all of it. I ate them all.
Brian was cooking the wings or frying the wings in the back.
I did everything. And then we announced the winners, and I actually really enjoyed how appreciative the winners were that they survived the whole thing, that they won. But it was cool. And then you saw people, sampling wings, and I noticed again, young. The audience was young, which I love that. I love that. We need to build off that energy. I felt like there was a lot of energy in the room. Mm-hmm. No offense to my older listeners. I love them all. I love everybody. But the young people being out and about is cool. Yeah, I enjoyed that.
Foodie Friday. Let's say top 3 or 4 favorite spots in St. Louis.
Oh my goodness, man.
It's summertime if you have to say. Hey,
no, it's fine. I mean, anything. So like if I had a friend actually who was in town. His daughter was in a volleyball tournament here last year and said, give me I need a lunch spot, a dinner spot, and anything else. And so just at random, I came up with 3. So I'll do those. You said 3 or 5?
Yeah, 3, 4, whatever.
So I said Pappy's are the best ribs in town. Now that's going to offend, all the others, of course, but they still. I grew up in the barbecue business, so I feel like I kind of know. So my dad had a Sunshine Drapery. He was the co-founder of Sunshine Drapery, but on the side, he and his buddies started Memphis Best Barbecue. So I mean, there are a few things that I really can say that I'm an expert on: baseball, college basketball. I love music, but I know my barbecue, and Pappy's is the best in town. Then I told him, you got to do Italian on the Hill. There's so many places in town. If you can do Charlie Gito's, I would do that. And then I said, Trattoria Marcella, if you could do that. Mm-hmm. And I said, if you really want to take your wife out to dinner and for a great experience, like pound for pound, best restaurant in town, on opposite sides of town, I'd go Sydney Street, or I'd go, if you're going to Chesterfield, I'd go Annie Gunn's. But it's just endless. I mean, we have such an incredible scene. Those are just some that come to mind.
I just ate at Sydney Street for the first time Saturday.
It's great.
Loved it. You like frozen custard too, right?
I love Ted Drew's.
Yeah.
They're also a client. But I got really excited when Ted Drew's came to me and said, we would like you to endorse us. I felt like I made it.
Yeah. I work with them too, so I feel
like I finally got to talk about eating at Ted Drew's. Actually, when Travis Dillon, the owner of Ted Drew's, came to me and said, I love listening to you talk about Ted Drewes. Like, that did it for me. That was pretty cool. That he liked how I talk about ordering a concrete and eating it. And then the other one, all of my live endorsement clients are fun, and I love them all, and I appreciate their business. But when Anheuser-Busch came and said, we want you to talk about drinking Budweiser, and I was like, I've made it.
That's as St. Louis as it gets.
I've made it. Like, and I said, do you have a script? And they're like, no script. Just you. Talk about drinking a cold, frosty Budweiser. And I'm like, this is awesome.
You're an OG influencer, man.
Oh, man. That's I mean, that is just, those are two titans right there, you know? That's big time stuff. Cardinals, Budweiser, Ted Drewes. What else is there? Emos?
You're right, yeah.
You know, I mean, that's...
I've worked with 3 of the 4. I need to get AB next. That's the goal.
Pretty cool stuff, isn't it?
Within your career, the top 4 iconic moments you've witnessed, and I know there's a lot.
You know, I mean, I'm so fortunate to have been able to be part of these things, whether it's calling a game or reporting. But yeah, being there for David Freese's home run in Game 6, or his triple in Game 6, just Game 6 in general, is the best baseball game I've ever seen. And the funny part was, right before that, so the summer of 2011, was Marshall Faulk getting inducted into Canton. And I was talking to some of his former teammates, and I said, I don't think that I will ever cover a team like that ever again. I don't think that I will ever see an incredible story like the 2011 St. Louis, or I'm sorry, the 1999 St. Louis Rams. And lo and behold, in 2011, the Cardinals do their thing. So the 99 Rams winning the Super Bowl, the 11 Cardinals doing their thing and coming back. And I was so grateful to be part of that broadcast team. And they invited me to go to the White House with them and, you know, and get to celebrate that. It was just an unbelievable ride. And then I said to myself, I will never have a better story of a comeback than the 2011 Cardinals. And then the 2019 Blues said, hold my beer.
Yep.
You know? And it was unbelievable. I mean, you know, you always wondered what it would be like if the Blues won the Stanley Cup. And I still am blown away that they did it and that we got to experience that and we got to see a parade go down Market Street. You know, that is just an incredible thing. You know, those 3 things, championships really do stand out. You know, individual performances, being able to see Albert Pujols, the greatest hitter I ever saw, and get to know him has been a career highlight for me. But to see those 3 teams each win a championship is pretty amazing.
So next time, I'll ask you top 4, and hopefully City SC can say that.
I would add, if I could add City SC becoming a team, I think that was a pretty amazing thing too, to be able to land them. But
changing your
their story is just beginning.
Yeah, awesome. Tom, I appreciate your time.
Hey, thank you very
you
much.
Yep.